What is up? Ooh, yeah. Go to the intro card. Welcome back to the miniature mic monologue. You guys, don't ask me why. I was just born like this. Also, look at my hair. Isn't it great? It's looking a little short today. I think it's because it's like day 4 or day 5, and it's kind of like getting all sucked in at the roots and whatever. But isn't she pretty? I'm criticizing myself in my editing brain because I'm like, you didn't really show it, but I'm not gonna do it again. So we're moving on. Hi, I feel like it's been forever since I sat down here and made a podcast, but it hasn't been. But I feel like it has been. I obviously am doing a things I used to think today. And before I get into them, because I don't really think I'm going to talk for a very long time today, but before I get into them, I just wanted to talk about how, or just make it a note in my digital journal book sort of thing that is this podcast, that for about like 2 months now, I've been having this thought repeatedly that like, oh, this is what it's actually like to live life. And I don't know, for a long time in my brain, I always felt like I was kind of in training mode, specifically when I started going to college, because I believed I wasn't training in preparation for like, you know, getting ready to be a representative for Christ in a good way on what I thought would be the national championship stage. But even like before then, sometimes I felt like I wasn't really living life like I saw people just do with so much courage and so genuinely, sometimes in really small snippets in real life instances, and then sometimes in like in where most of my inspiration came from in movies and things of that nature, which are obviously scripted, and I know that now. But I've always believed, because of that kind of courage is possible. And I know people, and I'm friends with people like Sam is definitely one of those people where they just kind of live like that all the time. And it's never been my first reaction or my first response. And so because of the way my brain is wired, I felt like because it wasn't, I had to make it my first reaction or my first response. And obviously that made me very uncomfortable and stressed out, trying to go from one extreme to the other, because clinging to extremes made it seem like I was doing all that I could do, and there was no wrong to be found in what I was doing, because I went from one end of the spectrum to the other, not even realizing that you can't, as a human, do something even totally 100%, even if you wanted to, because you don't know what you don't know that would actually make up doing something in totality. You know what I mean? Like, that's very hypothetical, but if you get it, you get it. Not that I don't want people to get it, but it's like you might not understand that experience, and I don't necessarily think it's important that you do. But if you do, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I just feel like recently I've been living, like, actually experiencing my life. I don't know, maybe it's literally just me coming to a different and new level of self-awareness, like, because I don't have school and because I don't have, not volleyball. Volleyball is actually a place where I always felt like I was living my life, even though I was doing it in a way that I had never expected I would be doing it. And so maybe that's what it is that I'm actually like embracing the unexpected, and then just kind of being myself, becoming who God's called me to be around that. So I don't know, just wanted to put that out there. I might make an episode about it later, but I've been thinking about that a lot recently, so I wanted to say it on here. Anyways, that's not at all what I have on my list of things that I used to think. So let's get into those. Kind of almost a perfect segue, honestly. The first thing I wrote was, I used to think life wasn't supposed to be hard. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I I think we all desire to have a strife-free life, is the way that the devotional I've been reading over this year described it. And there's a scripture that supports it that talks about or maybe that was the structure of the devotional. I can't remember. Either way, if I find the scripture that I'm talking about, I'll put it on the screen. But it just talks about not expecting there to be no strife, but looking forward towards that in heaven. That was like the general premise of the devotional. And I've spent so much time like making all these routines and working so hard for the most part so that I could function, playing a sport. But deep down, part of my hope was that I would be rid of all the stress. I would be rid of all the, having to pull myself to the side, tag along to do this thing, come back and do all these things. And then I would just be able to like sit still and do nothing in life. Not literally. I mean, obviously I have had opportunities to sit still and do nothing, but that deep-seated desire for me to not have to be needed or wanted or requested, or for something to be expected or required of me, is completely unfeasible. And excuse me, I am slowly coming to that acceptance now, because for a long time I didn't want to realize that, and I feel like I based a large part of my lens in my relationship with Christ on that and around that for a long time. And for the most part, it kind of was fruitful just because I wasn't so stressed out while I was playing. But now that I'm not in that environment, it's like, bruh, crap is gonna come and it's gonna suck. You know what I'm saying? Things are gonna be hard and you're gonna have to suffer. And there is no point in trying to get around it and act like it, because you'll spend more time being miserable, wishing that things weren't hard, than just embracing them and being able to have joy while doing the hard thing, which I don't believe is emphasized enough. And I kind of alluded to this concept in my first kind of more, how do I say that? Like movie-like editorial video that I made this year, and that was The Luxury of Life, which I did in combination with my podcast channel, that you can be struggling and have joy. And in my observation / experience / opinion, like, I don't really think that joy, that caliber of joy, exists outside of suffering, because you have to choose it. Because when everything is going well, you don't really have to choose joy. You don't really think about it. You just kind of expect everything to go well, and you get angry when it doesn't. And when I say you, I mean me, even though I know we probably all do this. But like, I don't know. There's something about having to choose joy that actually makes it what it is, the concept that we refer to it as. And yeah, so I mean, yeah, Jiana, life is definitely going to be hard. And I am just realizing, not in like a pessimistic way, but up until this point, I've definitely lived through the easiest challenges that I will. How do I say that? Up until this point in my life, the challenges that I have experienced have been the easiest probably that I will ever experience, because things are just going to get more complex. They're going to involve more people, more feelings, more nuance, more context. A lot of these situations just really involved me, and because they were attached to some like big name institution, and maybe because of the way that I saw them, it felt more personal, and not personal like I took a personal offense to it, but personal like it had something to do with me, which meant ultimately I had more control over my outlook on it. There are going to be things that come about that I know I'm not going to have control about. It's not going to be affecting me personally, but it will affect me personally. And so, yeah, so excited for that. That was so much sarcasm, and if you didn't pick it up, oh my gosh. The second thing that I used to think is that fear would go away. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe it's just a result of us growing up at the technology era and being able to see people live out moments that are their best, whether they're real or they're scripted, like movies and TV shows. Like in movies and TV shows, the same thing that I love about them is the same thing that I hate about them, is that we only see a flat face paper version of their life. Do you know what I mean? We don't ever see how they respond when something that's not one of the main tropes happen. You know what I'm saying? When it has nothing to do with the romance plot, it has nothing to do with their school life, it has nothing to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, what about when a non commonly packaged and presented formula of conflict that commonly occurs in movies that has to deal with family or boyfriends or friends that deal with very kind of surface level, and I'm not calling them surface level to say that I believe that they are of any less of a negatively impactful nature. There's not any deep diving into the things necessarily that really bother that person. It typically follows like a 3-prong or like a 4-prong fork of, you can go this route. The main character is a control freak, falls in love with a free-spirited person who actually isn't free-spirited. They're just insecure the same way as that person, but they mask it differently, so they think they hate each other, but the only reason they don't like each other is because they're the same, right? And then if it's not that, then it's a main character that you hate, you know what I'm saying, because they're arrogant and they're disrespectful. But what they're really hiding is that they're hurt. And then they meet someone that seems to be the complete opposite of them, but all they can do is embrace them, and then blah, 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 blah. And you know what I'm saying? Like, just random things that we commonly see, because those kind of movies people will at least sit down and watch. Not saying it'll touch somebody's life or change somebody's life, but there's no real nuance. There's no real explaining of, like, this is how I actually dealt with my fear. This is what I really did when I was struggling with doubt. It's just like conflict, resolution, conflict, resolution, conflict, resolution. And life isn't like that. So I just assumed that if there was going to be a conflict within myself, if there was fear, if there was doubt, if there was jealousy, if there was pain, that it would go from that to a resolution immediately, and that resolution meant that there would be no residue. Sorry, my mom called me. So I'm trying to remember my train of thought, but basically what I was trying to say is that movies give a mold for us to fit in, and they use a storyline to do it, I feel. But what I would have always wanted, and what I try to emulate with my channel and everything that I do, is this is my story, this is my version, this is my life, and in my vulnerability of sharing it, the parts that I like, some of the parts that I really don't like, and all of the in between, I hope to be able to reach you in a way that allows you to breach or bridge that gap in your own mind about things that you can't come to resolve in yourself. Thank you, Holy Spirit. That's exactly what I wanted to say. So yeah, I used to think that fear would go away, and I think that's where a lot of that comes from. And then just me being a human and me being naive and still being young and not knowing that it's not modeled, basically, is what I'm saying, because we each have to come to do it in our own right. Figuring out how to figure out ourselves, how to be okay with ourselves, how to deal with the things that bother us, that stress us out, that make us uneasy, and still be able to go on when we have responsibilities and when we have things to do. And so I think it was a very hopeful thought that I thought it would go away, and it kind of falls under the I used to think life wasn't supposed to be hard. It's just almost. But Adam and Eve did do the thing God told them not to do. Ooh, I really like this one. I used to think that the most surefire and steadfast answer was an instant one. And I'm still trying to unlearn this character trait, this pattern. And I think as I'm saying this out right now, this thing that the Lord speaks through me a lot of times on this podcast about situations in my life. So many times I've thought that God didn't hear me, or he wouldn't answer me, or he didn't want to talk to me, or whatever. Because there was a season in my life where, like, whenever I had a question, I went to God and he answered it immediately. And then that kind of season weaned off. Different things started happening. But I would think that because I didn't get that same kind of response, that same kind of answer, that general thing, that God wasn't going to answer. No, that's not true. Not that he wasn't going to answer, but like, it was just proof that I was in this mindset of not necessarily looking for an answer to the question, but looking for it to be formatted in a specific way. And that has permeated my relationship with God and, kind of driven it awry to my place of frustration, because I didn't even realize that I was doing that, because I had just gotten so accustomed to how we used to do things in conversation, to now my adjustment internally. I'm pretty sure my first reaction was like shock or fear that was kind of masked as anger, that I wasn't really able to sit down and properly identify until like right now. Anywho, but yeah, and that's just as it relates to my relationship with God, and it's kind of just a little bit of it. But I think I said what I wanted to say there. What I want to talk about more is as a person and in my own life and making decisions, kind of relating back to what I talked about with like hoping that fear would go away and making that switch from one extreme to another. When trying to figure out how I wanted to make decisions about my life, that idea or that process of going from one extreme to another seemed right to me, and like it made sense, because I would go from questioning to not questioning immediately, but then I wouldn't like the answer, or the answer would be wrong, or I couldn't come up with another extreme to go to. And so then I was left with what I tried to avoid in that stage, which was panic and fear or doubt or whatever it was, which I didn't know then, but I do know now. I could have easily handed to God and been like, yo, this is freaking me out. I don't know what to do with it. Like, I need you to help me. I might not be able to look at it right now, but I'm just going to give it to you, because I can't do that. My answer was trying to like cover it up and make it look like, oh, it didn't even happen. There was no transition period. Like, it went from no to yes immediately. And no. And even if that is an option, it doesn't mean it's always the best option. And I've had to learn that through lived experience of making very practical decisions, like how to plan my day. Should I go do this right now? Like, should I get up from what I'm doing and immediately go do this? And it's like, okay, well, in order to go do this, clean the car, I actually need to eat first. So do I get up and make myself something new to eat, or do I just warm up what I already have, or do I do this? So now I have to make a decision out of 3 different options to go do the thing that I actually want to do, which is go clean the car. And it's like, okay, well, now what time is it? And so now all of these things are running through my head, and I used to feel like, I have to make a decision right now so I know what I need to do. And I don't know who I heard say this or when I heard them say this, and I don't even think it was like a podcast or like I think it was like just some random Instagram clip. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't anything super godly or super spiritual or whatever. And the person was just like, when you can't make a decision, don't. And so I started doing that, and it changed my life. If I don't know what to do, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes. And usually if it's something mundane like that, maybe it takes me all 5, maybe it takes me 2, maybe it takes me 3, to where I'm like, okay, now I know what I want to eat. So boom, I'm going to go make it, or I'm going to go put it together. Actually, I'm just going to eat a snack. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now that I've decided what I want to eat, okay, I can now go take the car to a wash, or I can wash it right now. I can change my clothes. Oh, that reminds me, like, I need to do the laundry. Okay, let me reorganize that. Maybe I start the laundry while I'm washing the car. And now I can make a very clear and succinct decision that has all these other decisions in it about doing one thing because I didn't make a decision when I didn't know what to do. And so being in that state of always feeling like I need to make a decision right now was such an expression of fear that I didn't realize. And I'm glad I do now, because it's like, dude, you just gotta just chill. Like, I did get the tendency to be anxious, Jean. I did. But we do not embrace that, right? And so that's one of the ways that I had to do that. And I now no longer think that the most surefire and steadfast answer is the instant one. That doesn't mean that it can't be. But I feel like 9 or 8 or maybe 9.8 times out of 10, the most surefire and steadfast answer is never an instant one. You know what I'm saying? God is the only one who can create things in an instant, you know? And even though he could think about creation and how he created us and he created the world and all the things that are in it, he didn't create all that in an instant. He took time to do it, like 7 days to be exact. So anyways, now we're on to the last one. I'm checking the time. Okay, now we're on to the last. Oh no, I have one more, I think. Okay, this is kind of the last one, but there's technically 2 more. I used to think that I could evade the human condition. I feel like I am saying the same thing different ways right now. And when I was writing them down earlier, I thought these were all so different and not related. That's hilarious. She says in the most monotone voice ever. Yeah, I don't know. I used to think that I in that one podcast episode I made where it was like an apology to my Heavenly Father, I think that I talked about how I was like, I'm not going to do what I've seen these people do, where I've seen them misstep and where I've seen them fall. Yeah, sure, that's great. I think that that's wise. I think that's part of the reason God gives us community. He gives us people, all these different things. But just because you don't make the same mistakes that they made doesn't mean that you're not going to make your own mistakes. And I put that very false, unreliable, and unsustainable, founded in absolutely no truth, expectation on myself, well, because I was 17, you know? And I'm not mad at her because she has big, audacious goals and hopes and aspirations, and she is still me because I still have those, but those were misinformed. You cannot evade the human condition, and I don't want to invade the human condition because I don't know what option that leaves me with. You know, I don't want to die right now. You know what I'm saying? And the only 2 options I see right now in my head are like, you either become God or you become the one who's not God. And I don't want anything to do with that. Sorry about this situation here. We're almost done with the lighting and the blinds. But I don't even I don't want to not be a human. I actually really like it. So I don't know why I wanted. I think it was less about me literally not being human and more about me getting to this place of supernatural connection and relationship with God. And I knew that if I could evade all of the common human mistakes that people make, it would get me there faster. But you know, I can't have that relationship with him if I'm not human and I don't embrace my human condition. So yeah. We're not going to do that. We're going to embrace the human position, not evade. And is that the right word? Evade? Evade. Anywho, okay, this is the last thing that I used to think that I have thought about it all week, and I think that I need to apologize to you guys because I keep saying, I literally said in my last episode, at the end of it, that I was telling a story, and I was like, you guys, I don't like to talk. Like, I know I get on here and I talk about all these things that I do in my brain and all these other parts of my life and Jesus and my YouTube channel and all these things. And I was like, but I don't like to talk. And my aunt was like, but you know, you like to do this. And it's kind of like in a pastoral manner, preachy manner. So I used to think that I don't like to talk, or I used to think that I didn't like to talk. And I literally wrote, I think I do like to talk. I think I do. Like, sometimes. I do like to talk sometimes. And I am okay to settle there because this lighting, I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry. I didn't know the sun was going to move like this and interrupt our regularly scheduled experience of viewing. But I think I do like to talk sometimes, so I need to stop saying that I don't like to talk because I do like to talk. I do like to talk. I don't like to put myself in situations that could potentially be bad, but that's not living life. You know what I'm saying? Or to put myself in a situation to like be judged. So I think that's a lot of where that came from innately, as I was learning to fashion myself and my demeanor and all those sorts of things. But that's no way to live life. You know what I'm saying? And I do like to talk sometimes. And I think my friends would say that I like to talk a lot, but I just like their face. So I don't know. Maybe I don't like to talk. Maybe I don't like to talk to you. All right. That's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I bombarded you last week with 2 episodes. I actually wanted to upload it a couple days earlier, but some things had happened. The first one I wanted to upload like Thursday, Saturday, but it ended up being Friday, Saturday, which is totally fine because you're going to see this on Saturday. And I love you. Sorry about this lighting. I hope you like my hair. She's pretty. I love her. I cannot wait to get it blown out because like, meep. Meep. Oh, that's so exciting. All right, I'm getting distracted. See, I do like to talk. Sometimes. This is a very sometimes situation. That's it. Thank you guys for being here. I love you so much. Almost did my YouTube outro. You're the best. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.